Good morning. It is 5:07. I am Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis this morning on Nashville's Morning News. Glad to have you. We've got Brother Mason as producer today. Johnny B is off today. Good morning, Brother Mason.
Good morning, Miss Pamela Furr. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And then we have Ken Weaver over there in the newsroom this morning.
Sister Pamela Furr.
Brother Ken Weaver, good to have you as well. Nice to see your thin face. Holy smokes, you look great.
Well, I wish I could recommend this health care plan, but I would not.
Would not recommend going the route that you went. All right.
I would not. But let's just say, lesson learned. Let's just hope Brother Ken Weaver keeps what he's learned.
What he has learned, and keep eating the way you're eating and doing the things that you're doing, and all God's children will be healthier and happier.
You're looking pretty good too, Sister Pamela Furr.
Thank you. I appreciate that. About 65 pounds down.
Knocking it off.
I'm trying. Awaken180.com, by the way, free plug there. And by the way, okay, inside baseball. I haven't been on the air in a while, so I know I probably should not be starting the show this way. But Mason, if you're missing that commercial, I have it here. I just haven't recorded it yet. So if it comes up, just know that I've got it. I got to do it here.
No
all
worries.
Right, inside baseball there for a minute. Glad to have all of you here. It is really great to be back in the chair. I have been gone. I've been on the road. I've been talking to the American people. These days, I am grassroots director for Americans for Prosperity Tennessee, actually Middle Tennessee, in the Middle Tennessee office. And so I'll tell you more about that later, because I think it's important for you guys to know what some other people throughout America are saying about our country, about the upcoming election. Trust me, I've been talking to them. Been talking to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. So anyway, that may be coming up on the show at some point. We will speak to Congressman Andy Ogles at 6:05 this morning. He's going to talk to us about the chaos over the weekend there on Capitol Hill regarding this continuing, I think I've got this continuing resolution so we can still spend money for about 45 more days. Andy Ogles was not a yes vote on that, by the way. And so we'll talk to him and find out what the future holds. Matt Gaetz swears he is actually going to call for the resignation, the ousting of Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. I think there's another actual term for that, but more or less, he's looking for a vote to oust him because he says that McCarthy actually lied to them and lied to the American people. So we will get into that today, obviously, as well. And Congressman Andy Ogles will be with us at 6:05. Donald Trump's going to be in court today. Did y'all know that? He's actually going to show up for opening statements at his New York civil fraud trial. So that's going to happen this morning in New York City, in Manhattan, to be exact. In fact, I think he posted on Truth Social last night, "See you in court." And there's a part of me that thinks that he's loving, what's the song? Loving every minute of it. I really do. I think he's loving every minute of it. Because he is addicted to the limelight. And he should, if he has done nothing wrong, he should stand up for himself. He has every reason to be in court, and he has every reason to defend himself. So you go, Donald Trump. So that's today. And a lot of other things that we're going to talk about. We will have the Gang of Four coming up at 5:30, so be listening for that. Now, I want to get into this, though, before even the Gang of Four. It's the Gang of Three, isn't it, this early in the morning? Excuse me, guys. Gang of Three, unless, I don't know, does somebody else down the hall want to join us? No, it's the Gang of Three Amigos. Now, am I saying it right? All right, Gang of Three Amigos coming up at 5:30 or 5:35 here on WTN. Now, y'all aren't going to believe this. And I don't know, is Brother Ken able to listen? I know he's got a newscast he's got to put together for 5:30. Maybe I'll save it for 5:30. That's what I'll do, because then he can talk to us. I had an incident happen this morning at the McDonald's. Involving a gang of young people. A gang of hoodlums. I don't know that they were hoodlums, but they sure acted like it around me. So we're going to get into that. And you know what? I have to ask, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you have to be somewhere early for work, do you stop at a gas station or a McDonald's in Nashville? The answer should be no. No, you do not. Sister Pamela did not take that advice, and she did, and it was a little dicey there for a minute. I did call the police. I really did. Now maybe, I don't know, did I exaggerate? I was a little frightened. Now they don't know I was frightened. These young people who were surrounding my car. But anyway, we'll talk about it at 5:35. So stick around for that. Now let's get into this, shall we? It looks like Kevin McCarthy may at some point have to face lawmakers on a vote whether to keep him as Speaker of the House. Is my computer up there, young Mason? Here we go.
Somebody wants to make a motion against me, bring it.
Bring it, he says.
There has to be an adult in the room.
There has to be an adult in the room. Can I tell you something? From some of the things that I saw that happened over the weekend regarding this continuing resolution or whatever the heck it is called, there were no children. No adults in the room. They were all children. They all acted like a bunch of crazies. There's what happened to dignity? What happened to pride and being able to have conversations with those who do not agree with you without shenanigans? What happened to that? There was this guy, this lawmaker, maybe you've heard of him, Jamal Bowman, who actually pulled the fire alarm at the Capitol building on Saturday. The incident was caught on camera. It has since circulated far and wide, and it sent Capitol lawmakers and their staffs into a tizzy as they semi-seriously tried to understand why Bowman would think a clearly marked fire alarm would open the door. He says, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. I thought it was a handle to open the door. I didn't know it was a fire alarm. Okay, guys, I tell you what we're going to do. This is where we check in for traffic, right? From the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. Let's do that right at this second. Abundant sunshine today, highs in the upper 80s, lows in the low 60s. That is your weather forecast. I have no idea what the temperature is right now outside. Mason, do you know?
It is 61 degrees outside.
61 degrees outside. Thank you very much. At 5:16, good morning. Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, let's go to this Representative Jamal Bowman, who says, I didn't know that was a fire alarm. I thought that was the handle to open up the door. I was trying to get out of the building so I could head to the Capitol to vote on this resolution. I didn't know. I'm calling bovine scatology on that one. Now, y'all, haven't we all gone through? Now, I know, Mason, you're a little younger. You're a lot younger than I am. But didn't you in school go through fire alarm training and fire drills? Didn't you do that in school?
Absolutely, yeah. At least once a month, just to make sure everybody was up on it.
Just so everybody knew what to do if there was a fire or if the fire alarm went off. Now, don't you also know, simply by the bright red color on the fire alarm and the big letters that say FIRE at the top, and then ALARM at the bottom. fire alarm.
To be fair, we don't know if he was colorblind and dyslexic. It's possible.
To be fair.
So my brother's colorblind and my friend is dyslexic. I've had conversations with them where I'm worried for their sake.
However, when you have been told this is what this box is right here.
Absolutely.
Even if you're dyslexic, by the time you are the age of Jamal Bowman, I think you would remember, okay, that's what that looks like. That's a fire alarm. Don't touch it unless there's a fire or unless you're trying to delay a vote on a continuing resolution. They need to put a sign now by the fire alarm that says, in case of an emergency vote, pull this lever. Oh, my goodness. Bowman put out a statement claiming that while in a rush to make it on time to vote for a stopgap spending bill that would keep the government open, he activated the fire alarm mistakenly, thinking it would open the door. While fellow left-wing New Yorker Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leapt to Bowman's defense on Sunday, Republicans have been skeptical, with many noting the huge warning signs on the handle of the alarm and on a nearby door. And I would say this. So I've even seen the doors that say fire exit, and if you push this door, the fire alarm will go off. The door will open, but the alarm will sound. They're usually clearly marked. So here's the other thing you have to ask. Does Mr. Bowman know how to read? And if he does not, then what is he doing as a representative who's supposed to be reading all these very complicated bills? What is he doing in the House? I mean, I don't think he gets out of this, with any kind of credibility intact, for crying out loud. This is not confusing at all. Justin Amash, a former anti-Trump Republican congressman. There's a push bar on the door below the sign. Members of Congress see these signs all the time and know exactly what they mean. Now, I have not seen the video. I've only seen the still photo of him pulling the alarm. I honestly would like to see the video, because then you could see, is he looking around his shoulders to see if anybody's looking at him, yanks it, then takes off. That's someone up to shenanigans. That's how they would act before and after. But I haven't seen that. I would like to see that. Journalist Patrick Casey says Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm because he's incapable of reading this extremely common and not at all confusing sign is a million times funnier than him pulling it to stop the vote. And I think he's right. Talk about an adult. He's more like this childlike shenanigans when we're talking about Congress, when we're talking about spending our tax dollars, and when we're talking about how this looks to the American people. All of them should be ashamed. At least Matt Gaetz is standing up for what he believes is right. And I'll get more into that in just a moment. It's 5:21. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing, education, and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.
Yeah, the government shutdown's averted for now, but not the drama. Student loan payments set to resume, and have you seen where the Powerball jackpot is again? These stories and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Are you going to get a ticket?
Hopefully not a traffic one.
I'm thinking about getting a Powerball ticket.
I always forget. I say I'm going to do it, and then whenever it comes down to it, I just go home and take a nap. And then I don't want to get out again.
Yeah, you value naps over 1 in what? 2 billionth of a chance to
Something
win
like that.
the Powerball. What about you, Mason? You gonna pick up a ticket? It's worth your time now. I mean, it is over $1 billion.
Now that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
but taking a nap and doing the Powerball, two in the Powerball are both a gamble for me, so I don't know which one I'll end up taking.
It's both a gamble. The same with Joe Biden, by the way. Somebody woke him up over the weekend.
Hey, Jack.
And had to make a statement on, the continuing resolution
that
for
was
45.
something.
Yeah, listen to this real quick.
Protect we have transformational investments we're already making to deal with the climate crisis.
Climate crisis. He went off the teleprompter and what is he talking about? Anyway, more of that coming up, plus my incident this morning at the McDonald's off of Broadway. It's all straight ahead with the gang of three amigos. Did I say it right? Right here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30 on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Tell you about the cool down on the way. A government shutdown is averted for now. The weekend spending agreement President Biden signed into law lasts just 45 days. Includes $16 billion in disaster relief. No new money for Ukraine. And now Speaker Kevin McCarthy facing a threat to his leadership led by Congressman Matt Gaetz, who want to remove him as Speaker.
If at this time next week Kevin McCarthy is still Speaker of the House, it will be because the Democrats bailed him out and he can be their Speaker, not mine.
Learn more coming up at 6:05. Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles joins WTN's Nashville's Morning News Live to talk about it. Federal student loan payments set to resume after being put on hold for more than 3 years during the pandemic. Moody's Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi.
For most student loan borrowers, what it means is that they got to make some hard choices.
Zandi worried about retail spending.
It is a headwind to spending, and we need consumers to stay in the game. That's the reason why the economy's been able to avoid recession.
So 28 million student loan borrowers will now have to start paying off their debt this month. The average payment between $200 and $300. Right now in Nashville, still no arrests, but police checking surveillance video, talking to witnesses after 3 people were shot outside the Illusion Club on Murfreesboro Pike over the weekend. None of the injuries are life-threatening. And look where the Powerball jackpot is again.
No grand prize winner in Saturday night's Powerball lottery, so up the jackpot goes with the top prize in tonight's drawing, $1.04 billion, Powerball's 4th largest ever. These folks buying tickets in New York City and already have the money spent.
Vacations, pay all my debts.
I would share the money with the poor people, with the people that need. I will make it like a big house.
To give away like 90% of whatever the lump sum is, and I'll stay with 10%. That should be more than enough.
First, you have to beat the odds, one in more than 292 million.
That's Dave Packer reporting, and the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Good morning. It is 5:38. I'm Pamela Furr. This is the Gang of Three Amigos. Is this where Dan says, Ken, you're amigo number one?
Good morning, yeah.
Good morning. Mason, you are amigo number two.
I appreciate the honor.
Yes, and I am is amigo is
Amiga.
Is it amiga?
Could be amiga.
So I am
amiga.
I am amiga number three. Yay! Glad to be with you today on this fine Monday morning. It's the only day I'll be with you this week. I'm not sure who's filling in tomorrow because Dan's on vacation.
Yeah, he's out there hooping it up, hooping and hollering and just having a good old time, I'm sure.
A good old time. Well, I'm a little jealous of that. I fly to D.C. tomorrow, so I'll be out of town yet again.
Ooh, you heading for the swamp, Sister Pamela.
I was in the swamp all last week. I'll be in the swamp again tomorrow till Friday.
Well, see, that's what you get for being so busy.
It's craziness with this new gig I've got with Americans for Prosperity, but I'm very, very pleased. I enjoy the work. Happy
Congratulations
to do it.
on that, by the way.
Thank you very much. It's a great organization. We've all known about it for years here in the news biz, as they say, especially here in Middle Tennessee. And so, anyway, I get the opportunity to do that now. Ken and Mason.
Yeah.
Do y'all ever stop at a McDonald's? And yes, I'm saying it the very southern way.
Stop
McDonald's.
at the McDonald's?
At the McDonald's at 3 o'clock in the morning. Y'all ever do that? On Broadway, no less. On Broadway.
I can't say on purpose.
What about you, Mason? Now, Mason's a little younger, and you kind of work in this area, not just here at this station, but other places as well, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever caught myself there at 3 a.m. That's for
all right,
sure.
All right, yeah, that is what I'm asking. All right. Now, look, I don't normally do a McDonald's run anymore because of Awaken 180. However, I was craving, I needed some coffee, and
they do have good coffee.
And they'll do a scrambled egg for you if you ask them. You know, so I was going to get a couple scrambled eggs to go, and a good cup of coffee, and then just come on in here this morning at the McDonald's on Broadway. Well, here's what's so weird. So I drive up, and I see all these little clumps of youngsters. And I don't mean 12-year-olds. I mean, like 22s.
Yeah, in the 20s.
In their early 20s, gotta be.
Yeah, youngsters to us, buddies to Mason.
Right, your pack.
Hey, I don't know if they're associated with me. Hold on there.
Let me call and ask. All right, so anyway, so I noticed these clumps of youngsters, and they're at the drive-through speaker, like with the big menu, talking to it. And I'm going, well, this is odd, I guess. But I'm already pulled up in a lane that you can't just pull out of. You have to pull up and then out. You know what I mean? Because it's got a median and it has another speaker. It's got two lanes, right? And it's got another speaker on the other side. So anyways, I pull up. I roll down my window, which, why did I do that? That was stupid, too. I roll down my window, and I'm hearing these kids talk like, I'd like to order. And so then the person inside the McDonald's says, well, have you ordered on the app, on the McDonald's app? No, let me do that. So I'm going, oh, my God. So she starts to download it, and I hear her saying, it's not downloading. I can't get it to download. And I'm thinking, if you'll just move aside, I'll just order and be out of your way while you're downloading the app, right? Yeah. So I say, excuse me, out of the window, excuse me, if you'll just move over, I can pull up.
Yeah.
Oh. It was on at that point. Now, I wasn't being rude. I didn't yell. I just said, excuse me. And so this girl just goes off, calls me some names, and then stands right in front of my car.
Yeah. What she call you? Did she call you a meanie?
No. It's Halloween time. It rhymes with witch. How's that? And crazy. It was attached with crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy witch, I'm going, I just got called a name. And in my mind, I'm also thinking, oh, crap, I'm about to get shot. I really did. I'm thinking, what have I done? So I roll up my window, and I just look at her, and she's still looking at me. And I'm thinking, if you'll just move over, I'll leave. I don't even want the coffee now at this point, right? Well, then as she's screaming at me, a bunch of those youngsters then get behind me because I'm thinking, all right, now I'm going to have to put it in reverse and then back out of this little circular drive-through and get out that way. So now a group of kids are behind my car, and they start yelling at me. And I'm going, oh, my God, it's a riot. I'm being dramatic, but I couldn't leave at that point.
You're stuck.
I'm stuck.
With people who aren't particularly pleased with you.
Not pleased with me at all. And, by the way, the lady inside the McDonald's is still trying to take their order. She's like, will somebody talk to me? I could hear her, in the speaker going, what's going on out there? What's going on?
We're just dying to fill your order.
So I'm sitting there for, 2 or 3 minutes, and I decide I don't have a choice. I'm going to have to call the police. So I kind of crack the window. And I go, I'm calling 911. So they then start yelling, you go ahead, you crazy witch, you call the police. And I go, if you'll just move. And, they're yelling, run me over. Go ahead, run me over. No, I'm thinking just for a split second, okay, but I don't. I don't move. And I call 911 at that point. And so they're trying to talk to me. I'm still hearing them yell at me. I'm yelling back, just move. Move out of the way so I can leave. I couldn't leave. So I don't know. This is maybe about 5 minutes. So finally, they moved over to the point where I could get out. And as I'm trying to get out, I guess another car full of their friends pulls right up in front of me and then won't let me out. I'm going, oh, my God. I'm about to get killed right here in the McDonald's off of Broadway. And you know what I kept thinking? Who's going to fill in?
Yeah.
I was like, I can only talk about what I know
long,
for so long.
right?
Yeah, it would just be 4 hours of news. Well, let's hear Matt Gaetz again.
Anyway, finally the car moves enough that I can get out. They're still screaming at me, you crazy, you're psycho. And I'm going, all I asked you to do was move. I just wanted to leave. Finally, I do see a police car pull in, and I don't know what happened after that point. And I felt really bad about calling the police. In fact, I said to the dispatcher, I really hate that I'm having to call you. I really hate that I'm having to do this. But they won't let me leave. I just want to leave.
Yeah.
It was the strangest experience I've ever seen. And these weren't like, they weren't like, it didn't look like I'd driven up on a gang thing. It just looked like there were a bunch of 20-something partiers who were craving burgers in the middle of the night. They were dressed. They were dressed nice. You know what I mean?
They were youngsters.
They were young, entitled, you-know-whats who wouldn't move out of the way.
Yeah.
Because I got to download, this app, and, oh, my gosh, that was just an interesting morning, to say the least.
Well, lesson learned there, Sister Pamela Furr.
I'm never stopping.
You ain't never doing that again, are you?
And I will do whatever it takes not to have to pull up at a drive-through anywhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. I used to do that when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
I certainly ain't going to do that anymore.
I had a bit of an emergency about a month ago, heading up here in the middle of the night. Had to pull off.
Yeah.
Go find me a room, if you will. And standing outside was apparently the person tending to the store with several of his buddies and a thick smell of marijuana. They're just all out there, about 2:45 in the morning. And then one of them begrudgingly, I'm going inside. I'm the only customer, apparently. And one of them begrudgingly goes inside and he grabs a mop and pretends to do something. And afterward, I just said, dude, you didn't have to do that on my account. Just go enjoy yourself. And he said, thanks, man.
Got to keep up appearances somehow.
Thank you, man. Well, I have to wonder, because it just is so odd that honestly, these were nice-looking young people.
Yeah.
Again, they didn't look like bums. So I have to wonder what kind of, I don't know. It's odd to have a group of young people, isn't it, walking up to a drive-through like that?
Well, so if you think about it, there's a lot of hotels in Nashville.
Sure.
And we just had a bunch of concerts over the weekend. So there's a lot of people who flew in probably who didn't have a car.
Game
and a
was over
Titans
the
game,
weekend.
especially facing the Bengals. Great game, by the way.
Which we'll talk about. Maybe if I haven't used up all the time. But yeah. Well,
but it's like, if they don't have a car, I could see them walking to it. I've had it happen out in Murfreesboro where I live, where I've seen people walking up to
just
the drive-thru.
walking up. There used to be a rule, though, that they won't take your order unless you're in a car. Come inside. But at 3 o'clock, they're not open.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think rules change a little bit when you're that late.
Now listen here, young lady. I want you to follow this policy to the letter. Well, if you really want to go somewhere in this organization, you will follow the policy.
You will follow. And then I have to wonder what kind of drug dealing's going on. Who in that group is selling some pot?
Now,
Come
Sister
on.
Pamela, you know that's not happening.
Because they're not going to arrest them for using it. Not anymore. I don't think they do.
I don't know. In Tennessee, it's not legal
Davidson
yet.
County.
I don't think so.
Well, Glenn Funk, he's not. I mean, he said he's not going to prosecute anything less than an ounce.
So, I mean, there you go. Well, regardless, I was able to get to work on time.
Yeah.
I was not shot. I did not run anybody over. So that is the good news, I suppose.
We're glad you made it here on time.
I apologize to the Metro Police Department. See, I feel guilty calling them because, trust me, this is Metro Nashville. There's a ton of other things going on in downtown Nashville at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Somewhere around.
So my apologies, but I had no choice. They weren't letting me leave.
Yeah.
So I did not have a choice. It was crazy. All right. I've kind of run out of time. I did want to talk a little football.
Football.
And I tell you what, so let's do this. And was I supposed to do traffic in there? Okay,
Nope.
Good deal. Thank you.
No.
All right, let's do this. Let's take this break. When we come back, we'll just touch on football just a little bit.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. And then coming up at 6:10-ish, something like that, Congressman Andy Ogles will join us on the telephone to talk about all the shenanigans that took place over the weekend with this 45-day continuing resolution. It's, I think that's what it's called. It's all coming up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Federal government shutdown averted for now, but not the drama. Time to pay up for student loan borrowers, and charges of rape involving a teenager, a prominent horse stable owner, and the horses aren't in very good shape either. We'll tell you about it at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you very much, Ken Weaver. I appreciate that. Let's do this. Let's talk a little football. And, of course, when we talk about football, you think immediately Taylor Swift.
That's all anybody can think of right now.
Oh, my gosh, y'all.
Yesterday, I thought it was funny. The pregame, the Fox NFL guys, Terry Bradshaw handed Howie Long a friend bracelet.
Yeah.
And Howie Long just tossed it aside and he didn't make any comment. You could tell, though, it was burning him up.
So here's the thing. Look, first of all, I'm not a Swiftie per se, and obviously I don't like her politics, but she is a superstar.
Yeah.
Everywhere she goes, she makes everybody money. Not just herself, but everybody makes money somehow or another. And I know the NFL is thinking, yes, thank you, Taylor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because the ratings are going up, which is just crazy.
Well, yeah, you got people that don't even know what football is.
They don't even know. How do they make a basket? They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know. You score a touchdown. What does that mean?
When are they going to start singing?
Exactly.
Where's Taylor?
So that is interesting to me. So it's bringing up the viewership, but longtime football fans are getting a little pissed off. And here's the other. I'll just play this for you. Let me find it here. Carson Daly, I guess, was talking a little bit of football on one of the pregame shows, and this was his. Come on, Ken. When you hear this as a journalist, as a writer, you're going to just shake your head.
Okay.
Listen to this. Ken, that's just, don't.
Oh.
And if you don't get it, if you're not a Swiftie, you don't listen. He was using all these song titles to write that piece.
Yeah. That's like having Michael Strahan interview the president on ABC.
Yeah. It is,
that's hard hitting right there. And, of course, that would be interesting. Biden, he'd start talking about how whenever he was a football player.
Right, back when he used to play
he was a
football.
flanker back.
Before they used to wear helmets. Well, here's the thing. Look, good for her. You know what I fear? This is another Brangelina, whatever that is. Brangelina.
What was that?
Whatever. Another, because they're calling them trailer now, right?
Yeah, trailer.
So it's trailer. This relationship is doomed off the bat. You know what I mean?
My wife and I were talking yesterday, and Jennifer doesn't really care anything about football. She is kind of, disgusted with all this, fanfare over Taylor Swift going to a football game, just because, it's like big deal. But now we are actually wanting to see when the Chiefs start losing.
Right.
And young Mac Morey is going to lose his mind when it happens.
Exactly, because the focus is not going to. Yeah, the focus is not going to be on football now. It's going to be on the relationship.
Well, it's not because Patrick Mahomes threw 6 interceptions. It's Taylor Swift. Right. She's now besties with his wife. He can't get it off his mind. Maybe he passed that a little too swiftly.
Oh, no, don't do it. Don't start down that path.
He went through his reads too swiftly.
All right. Well, here is the thing. Bless their hearts. He's not the only one who's dated a celebrity.
No.
Now, wasn't there a time that Carrie Underwood actually dated, who's the guy? Every time he speaks, I tell him to shut up. Tony Romo. Didn't they date for a split second, and she would show up to his football games, and maybe they were friends, something like that. And so, they would blame Dallas Cowboys losses on Carrie Underwood because all the focus was on her.
To these celebrities, credit. They're just trying to go out and watch a game.
True.
And it's the media that's making a big deal out of it.
It really is. Otherwise, people would not be watching. I mean, because we don't have a view of who's in these boxes.
Right.
So we wouldn't care. But God bless, there's some really great games out there that I would like to watch without actually bringing up the name Taylor Swift. One more quick, and I know we're kind of behind here. I'll excuse it as I'm the fill-in host. But y'all, did you watch the Tennessee game? Now, bravo to the Tennessee Vols. I'm talking about the Vols here. But that young man who was injured.
Brew McCoy.
Oh, my gosh. I saw it live.
Yeah, it's
and
terrible.
I got a little nauseous. I don't know if you actually saw the play. But, guys, he fractured his ankle. And when I say it looked like it was detached from the rest of his leg.
Well, it was. It's a dislocation and a fracture.
Oh, my gosh.
So his ankle was pulled out of its socket.
And broken.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you knew it the second it happened.
Yeah.
And it was hard to watch. So I'm going to say a prayer for that young man and his family that he will recover well. Obviously, he's out for the season. All right, it's 6 o'clock. It's time for news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories and a temperature swing on the way. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Tense showdown on Capitol Hill over the weekend. Congress narrowly averting a government shutdown for now, passing a 45-day stopgap funding bill. Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy now facing a threat to his leadership for working with Democrats to avoid that shutdown. Here's Jonathan Carl with more.
McCarthy was able to pull off keeping the government open essentially by defying many members of his own party. He put a bill out that in the end 90 Republicans voted against that required a 2/3 majority because he put it out without any notice, any warning. Almost all of the Democrats in the House, all except for one, voted for it. It passed and it kept the government open for another 45 days. But this is something that McCarthy may pay a price for.
Yeah. Fellow Republican frequent critic Matt Gaetz says he's going to seek to oust McCarthy for not reining in spending the way the more conservative members of the House would like.
Bring it on. Let's get over with it and let's start governing.
I'll learn more after weather and traffic. Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles joins WTN's Nashville's Morning News live. 28 million American borrowers rebalancing their budgets as the 3-year pandemic pause on federal student loan payments expires. The average federal student loan borrower owes more than $37,000, payments averaging between $200, $300 a month. It's a big toll on a lot of borrowers, but it is what it is. The pandemic's over, and the government wants that money. So do the universities. Right now in Middle Tennessee, a horse stable owner in Rutherford County will be in court. Channel 4's Joylyn Bukovac tells us the kind of day 51-year-old Jason Lancaster's having.
And this morning, Jason Lancaster is being held on a $1 million bond, and we're just hours away from him walking through these doors alongside sheriff's deputies for the court hearing this morning. And he's facing several charges right now, including 2 counts of rape, 3 counts of sexual battery, stalking, and bribery of a witness.
All of this involves a teenaged girl. Police said Lancaster, who owns Pinnacle Stables in Christiana, where he is presumed to have had sexual contact with other possible victims. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Stocks finished out September the way they spent most of the month, on the downside. The Dow Jones on Friday lost 158 points to finish the week at 33,507. The S&P slipped 0.25%, but the Nasdaq Composite did gain 0.14%. Crisis averted, or at least forestalled. The Senate over the weekend passed a continuing resolution to keep federal functions operating for another 45 days. The president has signed it. Changes are on the way for a lot of business cards at Walmart. The company says it's streamlining job titles for many of the corporate staffers at the retail giant. Responsibilities and base pay, though, will stay the same for most of those workers. And Toys R Us is preparing to open up all over the place. The company behind the chain says its first airport store will open next month at Dallas-Fort Worth International. It also plans to open flagship stores across the U.S. next year. It'll begin putting Toys R Us shops on some cruise ships.
All right, let's check futures ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures now down 12, S&P up 1, NASDAQ up 35. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:10. Good morning. I'm Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. A lot to get to today. We are keeping our eyes on Manhattan as former President Donald Trump will arrive as his civil fraud trial gets underway in New York. He's going to be in the courtroom this morning during opening statements. So that should be a circus. Welcome to your Monday morning circus here in New York City. Anyway, so that is coming up. So we'll keep you posted on all of that. Right now, though, we are talking about the shenanigans that happened over the weekend. Now, there was a continuing resolution that was passed. It's just for 45 days that happened. But with that came a whole lot of drama. And so we want to talk to our very own Congressman Andy Ogles, who is right in the middle of all of that. And he's been standing his ground since day one on all of this. Let's get his take now. Good morning, Congressman Ogles.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm just trying to figure out what is happening in Congress. It's a little bit of crazy.
It is a little bit of crazy, but that's okay. I mean, that's what our founding fathers expected. Is we're supposed to argue and debate. We're supposed to come up with the best outcome for the American people. And so if we all just go in there and kiss a ring, that's not what the founding fathers intended.
Yeah,
so,
that is very true. Very true. And here's the thing. I have to wonder if the founding fathers intended on fire alarms getting pulled right in the middle of all of that.
Okay, I'm just going to be candid. You have to be a special kind of stupid to pull a fire alarm and not realize you're pulling a fire alarm. I mean, come on. I mean, it says fire alarm on it.
Big, bright letters, yes.
I mean, so again, I don't mean to be mean, but that's a lame excuse that he put forward. And quite frankly, I think if the average person did that in a movie theater or at a school, they'd be charged with some sort of crime. But in his case, he'll get off scot-free.
Probably so. Probably that is the case. I think McCarthy has said he's going to launch some sort of ethics investigation, and Capitol Police, of course, are investigating as well. But with these guys, it does look like nothing ever happens to them. There are some, including former President Donald Trump, who think he should be prosecuted just like the January 6th so-called rioters were prosecuted as well.
Well, so there's an ethics committee. It's evenly distributed between Democrats and Republicans. So you have to have something fairly egregious for a Democrat to rank on their party or vice versa. So it's 3-3. And so it's really, so the ethics committee is highly unlikely to do anything because it's designed to be gridlocked. And then Capitol Police, they'll, I don't want to be too harsh on the Capitol Police, but I don't expect them to do much of anything either. So with that being said, if I had to predict, he'll get off scot-free. Maybe a censure vote in the House of Representatives. That's probably the worst that'll happen to him. But anyway, we've got the people's business to do. Childish antics aren't productive. We can disagree, but when you're pulling fire alarms, that's, again, special kind of stupid if you don't know that that's a fire alarm.
All right, so here's my next question. For those who missed it over the weekend, what exactly happened? So we're okay for, and I'm using the air quotes, okay, for 45 days?
Yeah, so the House of Representatives passed a 45-day stopgap measure, sent it over to the Senate. The Senate took it up and approved it. So it's the typical pattern that you've seen year over year where, you kind of, the Congress, House and Senate kick the can down the road. So they'll do a 45-day CR, continuing resolution. You'll probably see a 30-day resolution. And as you get into the holidays, whether it's right up against Thanksgiving or right up against Christmas, the Senate will send us some sort of ginormous spending bill, and then they'll leave, and then they'll just leave it to us to kind of cram it down our throats. This was kind of the inevitable outcome. We don't control the Senate. That's why the 24 elections are so important. But the Republicans on the Senate side are complicit in these actions, and so let's not forget that. But
sure.
We're holding the line, and so probably the biggest thing that your listeners are wanting to know is what happens next.
Right.
You hear Gaetz on CNN talking about a motion to vacate. Is that the next play? We've passed, so there's supposed to be 12 appropriations bills passed by Congress. That's law. Year over year, Congress breaks its own law, and so what we're trying to force is let's get back to regular order, meaning we follow the law and pass 12 appropriations bills. So we've passed 4. We have 8 to go, and so we're supposed to be in district this week, and next week we're going to be in Washington, D.C., and then those of us on the conservative side of this equation are pushing, trying to get the other 8 bills passed. So again, we're retraining Congress on this is how you're supposed to operate. And the last time that all 12 bills were passed in accordance to the law was 1997.
Wow. Well,
so that's 26 years ago.
That's 26 years ago, and that's Republicans also who are responsible for that. Wow. All right, now let me ask you this. There's some accusations that Kevin McCarthy was not honest and is not keeping his word. Is that true?
Well, I guess that probably depends on your perspective. There was always going to be a separate Ukraine vote. Perhaps the details weren't released in specificity, but you kind of have to not be paying attention to realize that was coming. It's kind of like you throw a baseball up in the air. It's coming back down. And so when that funding was set aside, it was going to boomerang back to us. And so that really, for me, the motion to vacate is premature, primarily because it's one thing to change coaches in the middle of the season. It's another thing to try to do it in the middle of the game. We have 8 appropriations bills to pass. We only have 45 days to do it. It's important that we, put our nose to the grindstone. And some of these bills are going to be a challenge. Like the ag bill that failed last week, that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of meetings. It could take us 2 weeks, which is sad to say that. But the reality is it could take us 2 weeks just to pass that one piece of legislation. Wow. And so we really don't have a whole lot of time to get into some of these personality conflicts that you see playing out in front of the American people. But by the way, I'm okay with the personality conflicts. I'm okay with them. They're kind of going at each other. John Quincy Adams, like the House of Representatives, that's where you argued and you debated. But as long as we continue to do our work, and that would be my fear at this point, is that it becomes a distraction.
All right. Thank you very much. So you're in the district this week, or you're in D.C. this week?
I've got to go back to Washington, D.C. Hopefully, we'll be in lots of meetings, huddling, trying to get these agri-probes is the next big one out of. We'll have to go back to committee, get it out of committee, and then let's vote on that one. But no, there's a lot of work to be done, and we could be in D.C. almost for 6 weeks straight.
Wow. All right.
If we don't make some headway.
All right. Well, I'm headed to D.C. myself tomorrow, so maybe I'll see you up there. Thank you, Congressman Andy Ogles. Good to hear from you, and we will stay in touch. Keep us posted if there's anything that happens with all of this, with the shenanigans and with the good stuff you guys are doing up there. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. It is 6:18. I know we're late for traffic, so we'll just skip that. You said, okay, great. And I apologize for that. I'm sorry, Dan Mandis. Please don't hate me for that. At any rate, we will have the traffic on the other side when we break. It is interesting that Congressman Ogles was not like Matt Gaetz in saying McCarthy's got to go. And Matt Gaetz is all about McCarthy's got to go. I will show you by playing some audio from one of the talking head shows he was on over the weekend, ABC's This Week without George Stephanopoulos. So we'll do that when we come back. I know he was on all the shows, I'm pretty sure, but we'll do this from ABC coming up. Gaetz is adamant he's going to call for a motion to vacate and get rid of McCarthy. Does that mean Gaetz wants to be at the head? I don't know. And is this move a good move for Republicans who really need to get their you-know-what together and try to do what's right for the American people instead of all this infighting. But if it is for the greater good, I'm all right with that. I'm not sure it is. We'll talk about it when we come back. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing education and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.
Federal government shutdown averted over the weekend, but the drama remains. And in 45 days, we may be doing it again. These stories and more at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. It is 6:28. I am way, way behind. Man, Dan Mandis wasn't lying to me when he said, if you get behind even 30 seconds, you'll be behind the rest of the show.
It's all them commercials.
It's all, and thank God for them.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Thank you to our sponsors.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ken Weaver. I appreciate that. Newscast, of course, coming up at 6:30. Another thank you again to Congressman Andy Ogles for joining us this morning. He was actually on his way to the airport. And so for taking his time out to talk to us, to let us know what kind of shenanigans are going on. And we will talk. I swear, I'm going to get to the audio. I've got all this audio right here. And it's Representative Matt Gaetz threatening to oust Speaker Kevin McCarthy. But the truth of the matter is that's not going to be very easy. He even told CNN that we need to rip the Band-Aid off. And he says, I think we need to move on with new leadership that can be trustworthy. But that's going to take quite a bit to do. The rules of the House allow for any single lawmaker, Democrat or Republican, to make a motion to vacate the chair. It is a rare and it is a strong procedural tool that has only been used twice in the past century. But in recent years, conservatives have wielded the motion as a weapon against their leaders. And I'm sure at some point the Democrats will end up doing that too. These guys up there make lots of threats that never come to fruition. And it just looks like there's so much contention among Republicans that the Democrats, in my opinion, are sitting back going, just let them destroy themselves. Just let them do it. So we're going to talk about it. We'll hear from Matt Gaetz. He may be right on principle, but is it the right thing to do right now? It is 6:30. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Congress now has until mid-November to pass a long-term spending bill after averting a government shutdown late Saturday. This bipartisan effort needed to pass the bill could cost House Speaker Kevin McCarthy his speakership. Here's Jonathan Carl.
This short-term fix, it's basically just keeps the government running at its current levels, and it includes money for disaster relief. But it does not include the additional funds for Ukraine that both Republicans in the Senate and the White House has demanded and was looking for. So, it wasn't a total capitulation for Republicans because Republicans in the House did not want Ukraine funding in there. But other than that, this gave Democrats exactly what they were looking for in a short-term deal.
Federal student loan payments set to resume after being put on hold for more than 3 years. During the pandemic, 28 million borrowers will now have to start paying off their student loan debt this month, the average payment totaling between $200 and $300. And later today, former President Trump expected to attend the opening day of a civil fraud trial in New York City, where he'll face the judge who ruled the former president for years inflated the value of his real estate portfolio. Here's Aaron Katersky.
On the eve of a civil fraud trial that has already jeopardized his control of the real estate empire that made him a household name, Trump telling a campaign rally in Iowa,
"They go after their opponents with the law enforcement now. They've weaponized our law enforcement."
the judge has already decided the core of the case, finding conclusive evidence Trump, his eldest sons, and the Trump Organization committed widespread fraud by lying about the value of his assets, inflating Trump's net worth by as much as $2.2 billion.
No grand prize winner in Saturday night's Powerball lottery, so up the jackpot goes with the top prize in tonight's drawing, $1.04 billion. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:37. I am Pamela Furr and for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. The gang is all here. Well, we are missing Johnny B. He is not here. So Mason is here in the producer's seat, and we have Ken Weaver over there in the newsroom. Good morning, brothers. Glad to have you here.
Appreciate you having us.
I need more coffee. Do you have a coffee person? Do we have one for the Nashville Morning
Is that my job? Is that why I'm here?
No, not at all. But glad you're here. All right, let's get right to it. I don't want to waste any more time because I've been teasing it, and I've yet to have the opportunity to play audio from Matt Gaetz, who says that he indeed is going to take on Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy said earlier, bring it.
Kevin McCarthy's going to get his wish. I don't think the adult in the room would allow America to sit atop a $33 trillion debt facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. I don't think the adult in the room would allow $8 trillion of this debt to come into refinancing at a higher level without serious spending cuts. And I don't think the adult in the room would lie to House conservatives. And that is exactly what Kevin McCarthy did.
Let's just be honest. When we're talking about continuing resolutions and government shutdowns, we've all been here before. It happens year after year after year when we get to this point. And I firmly believe most people just tune it out anymore. Government shutdown, yeah. People aren't going to be able to eat, yeah, whatever. Military won't get their paychecks, okay, whatever. Because it's the same old, year after year after year after year. Now, Matt Gaetz believes that Kevin McCarthy, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, actually lied to the American people. So the question is, what did he actually lie about? Here's Matt Gaetz once again on ABC's This Week without George Stephanopoulos. He's telling Jonathan Karl.
In January, to get the speakership, Kevin had to agree to certain guardrails on spending, and he had to agree to a process that would allow us to put some downward pressure on spending. Since the mid-90s, this country has been governed by revolving continuing resolution and omnibus spending bill. And what that means is that America's lawmakers take one up or down vote on the funding of the entire government. That is crazy. That is the reason we're $33 trillion in debt. We want to move to single subject spending bills. So he made that commitment. He broke it. And if at this time next week, Kevin McCarthy is still Speaker of the House, it will be because the Democrats bailed him out, and he can be their Speaker, not mine.
Now, I will say that former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, has said they're not going to get involved in this fight. They're not going to get in this fight at all when it comes to the possibility of vacating Speaker Kevin McCarthy in the House of Representatives. So we'll see about that. But here's more from Matt Gaetz. Very interesting stuff to me. And again, a lot of bloviating, a lot of threats, a lot of shenanigans going on up there in Congress in the swamp. But what else would you expect?
You would need a majority to remove him, which means you're going to need Democrats to remove him. Do you really think that Democrats are going to vote to remove Kevin McCarthy because he made a deal with Democrats?
No. I actually think Democrats are going to bail out Kevin McCarthy. So this is an exercise to show the American people who really governs you and how that governing occurs. So I'm on a mission to change it, where we're evaluating these bills independently. Kevin McCarthy is off making a secret deal on Ukraine as he's baiting Republicans to vote for a continuing resolution that doesn't include Ukraine. So the one thing Democrats, Republicans, the White House, that we all have in common is that Kevin McCarthy at one point or another has lied to all of us. But if they want to keep him, then he belongs to them.
Interesting. Now, it's not much of a secret if Matt Gaetz knows about it, if he's trying to negotiate behind the scenes on Ukraine. Now, I will have to say for Sister Pamela here, I'm done with sending money to Ukraine. Now, there may be some valid reasons to continue this support, but when I look at our border, I have said this before when I have filled in here at WTN. When I look at our southern border, not just the southern border, but the northern border as well, when I look at the fact that we have 19,000 plus border agents, when you've got New York City, who has 55,000 police officers, there's a problem. Not just at the southern border. If they're all focused on the southern border, my question is, what's happening on the northern border? We need to spend more money to secure this nation. And I'm sorry, but Ukraine has gotten enough of our money. They've gotten enough of our money. Let's move on from this. Now, again, I don't know all the behind-the-scenes information that some of our congressmen know that's classified. They may know more than us that's being publicly revealed. But I know this. I pay a huge amount of taxes. And I believe I get to say what happens to my tax dollars. And when our own country is going downhill like a snowball, headed for hell, if I may quote Merle Haggard, then I have a problem with sending anybody else any dime until we get our problems taken care of. Sorry, I just got on a little tangent there, but that is 100% how I believe, and I know you feel the same way too. Let's finish this, though, from Matt Gaetz, and then we'll check in with traffic. Matt Gaetz, once again, on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, although he's never there. So he's talking to Jonathan Karl here.
I am relentless, and I will continue to pursue this objective. And if all the American people see is that it is a uniparty that governs them, and that it is always the Biden, McCarthy, Jeffries government that makes dispositive decisions on spending, then I am seeding the fields of future primary contests to get better Republicans in Washington who will actually tackle these deficits and debt.
He may also be seeding the field of his fate. I'll explain why in just a moment, but right now we want to check in with the Paul Winkler. Let me get this right. Paul Winkler, WTN Traffic Center. Abundant sunshine today, highs in the upper 80s, lows in the low 60s. It is still 61 degrees. You know what? Actually, I was looking forward to fall, but boy, it sure feels like summer around these parts, doesn't it? I'm ready for fall to get here. Come on now. What is up with that? Anyway, 61 degrees right now. It feels like fall. It's supposed to be, like I said, in the upper 80s today, maybe even pushing 90 degrees today. So it's still a little warm out there. Dress accordingly. It is 6:46. I am Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. Now, it looks like just with all of the rhetoric coming from Representative Matt Gaetz, and you may stand with him on what he's trying to do with Kevin McCarthy. You may stand with him on all the things that he says, that we need to get our spending under control. We need to look at Ukraine and the kind of money we keep sending them week after week, month after month, etc. I'm with him on that, but should he be moving to oust Kevin McCarthy? Not so sure. Well, there are other Republicans that think that this is just egregious. So, according to the New York Post, his colleagues are looking to boot him. They're looking to boot Representative Matt Gaetz as the firebrand Florida lawmaker heads to push to oust House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Long peeved by Gaetz, who has targeted GOP leadership and undercut his party repeatedly, some Republicans, this is from the New York Post, are champing at the bit to expel the congressman if the House Ethics Committee investigating him finds any wrongdoing. Now, remember, there's still an investigation going on with or about Matt Gaetz, and I guess his activities when he was a single gentleman. He's not anymore. He's married now. Gaetz, who is rumored to be eyeing a run for Florida governor, brushed aside the threat, posting a, quote, Game of Thrones meme. The meme, I don't know if you've seen it. It's Matt Gaetz, his face, and then guns in a circle surrounding his face. A motion to expel requires 2/3 vote to go through, meaning Democrats will hypothetically need to come on board, giving the 221 to 212 Republican to Democrat makeup. Gaetz has professed his innocence on this ethics probe, which is reportedly nearing its conclusion. The investigation is said to center on allegations that include sexual misconduct, illegal drug use, and potential public corruption. Republicans, of course, you know this, they have a razor-thin 4-seat majority in the lower chamber, which means that Gaetz poses an outsized threat to the McCarthy speakership. His motion to vacate, which he plans to introduce today, tomorrow, Wednesday, will require a simple majority to pass. Meanwhile, you've got his enemies out there trying to figure out what to do with Matt Gaetz. And when you're talking about a fight like this, you have to know that everything you've ever done, good, bad, or ugly, is going to come to the forefront. Your enemies are going to use what they can, even if they're on the same aisle, as on the same side of the aisle as you're on. So this is what's going on in the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, our country continues to decline. If you looked at your gas prices lately, if you looked at how much it costs to feed your family lately, thank God we're still in the middle of no taxes for groceries in the state of Tennessee. I think that ends in wait, did it end already? October the 1st? It may have already ended. I need to look that up. I don't know if it's October the 1st or October the 31st.
I'll look it up for you real quick.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Google that for me. I'd like to know that. I should have done some grocery shopping over the weekend. Anyway, regardless, that has helped somewhat for families in Tennessee. Thank God for it. But when the gas prices are going up, that takes away whatever savings we were in the middle of with this grocery tax holiday, which, by the way, was championed by the organization that I'm now working for, Americans for Prosperity Tennessee. You need to thank your folks like Tori Venable and others who helped champion that. It is 6:50. I am Pamela Furr, in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Congress kicks the can into mid-November. Student loan borrowers, time to get back on track. Former President Trump to be in a courtroom this morning. A prominent stable owner in Middle Tennessee is accused of rape, and a witness describes going to get a cup of coffee just down the road from where someone pulled a gun and started shooting. These stories and more at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Was that at a McDonald's off of Broadway?
No, not this one.
All right, just wanted to make sure.
Not this one.
All right, if you didn't hear about that, I talked about it during the Gang of Three Amigos this morning at 5:30. We'll revisit that at 8:35 this morning with the gang. Now, it's Four Amigos at 8:35, correct? Because Chris Hand joins us?
Yeah, brother Chris Hand, after a long, restful night of sleep, joins the other Three Amigos.
All right, good deal. So we'll revisit that, what happened to me this morning at a McDonald's off of Broadway, which lesson learned, don't go to McDonald's at 3 o'clock in the morning, for crying out loud, off of Broadway in Nashville. So anyway, that's coming up. Now, have you heard, let me pull this up. Have you heard that Governor Newsom has picked a replacement for Dianne Feinstein? Her name is, all right, are you ready? I'm sorry. I'm going to show my age here when I do what I'm about to do. Her name is LaFonza Butler. LaFonza. Now, I want to go, hey. Now, okay, I think that's funny. Now, Mason probably doesn't get it. And not because of any other reason except for Happy Days has not been on the air while you've been alive at all.
Now, there's been a lot of days since
Right.
Happy Days.
There's been a lot of days.
I don't even think it's in syndication anywhere.
I haven't seen it in years. I don't think it's on Nick at Night or TV Land or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
LaFonza Butler as the Feinstein replacement. Hey. Look it up, Mason. It's fun. The Fonz. I'm talking about the Fonz. Are you familiar?
I am familiar. Yeah, right. I had very nice parents who showed me some of the classics. For sure.
You
got that as a classic?
Good. Yes, it is a classic. You had good parents. I too am a classic, and I believe Ken Weaver's also a classic.
Yeah, everybody loves the classic.
Yeah, Opie had grown up.
Yeah, Opie was an adult, really, at that point. All right.
Listen to that devil rock and roll.
After the news, I want to tell you something interesting about Newsom's pick for Feinstein's Senate seat. It's coming up after the news at 7:05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
7 o'clock on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Get ready to ride the old temperature roller coaster this week. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Congress now has until mid-November to pass a long-term spending bill after averting a government shutdown late Saturday. President Biden signing a bill which includes $16 billion in disaster relief but does not include any new aid to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Speaker Kevin McCarthy facing the wrath of a handful of Republicans.
I am relentless, and I will continue to pursue this objective.
Florida House Republican Matt Gaetz threatening to introduce a motion that would allow House members to eject McCarthy from the speakership with a majority vote. Gaetz drubbing McCarthy for brokering a deal with Democrats and, quote, not reining in spending. McCarthy says he's determined to keep his gavel.
Bring it on. Let's get over with it, and let's start governing.
28 million American borrowers are rebalancing their budget as the 3-year pandemic pause on federal student loan payments expires. The average federal student loan borrower owes more than $37,000 in debt, payments averaging between $200 and $300 a month. Resuming now. Later this morning in New York City, Aaron Katersky at the courthouse where the civil fraud trial of former President Trump is held.
Former President Trump is due here just a couple of hours from now. He will confront a judge who has already ruled that much of his wealth is a mirage and the result of fraud in a civil case that could harm his reputation and his wallet. Trump is coming here to listen to the opening statements, but he'll have to come back here later in the trial when the state expects to call him as a witness.
Right now in Nashville, still no arrests, but police are checking surveillance video and talking to witnesses after 3 people were shot outside the Illusion Club on Murfreesboro Pike Saturday night. The victims ended up a mile away at a Speedway gas station where Roger Dale tells Channel 4 he was going for a cup of coffee.
3 people shot, 4 ambulances, 8 police cars, and a lot of cops.
None of the injuries are life-threatening. And right now in Rutherford County, prominent horse stable owner Jason Lancaster goes to court this morning to face charges related to the alleged rape of a teenaged girl. Channel 4's Joylyn Bukovac says there's another side to this story that involves a number of animals in his care.
During this investigation, investigators, they found horses in need of medical care. 20 horses were taken from Lancaster's property, and he is in jail this morning. He's being held on a $1 million bond.
Police say Lancaster's the owner of Pinnacle Stables in Christiana. Turning to sports, up until yesterday, the Titans had lost 7 of the past 9 meetings with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Going to give Henry a chance on the left side. Here he goes, the big man. To the 25, to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5, to the end zone. Ladies and gentlemen, the king! Touchdown, Titans!
It is something seeing King Henry going full speed, I'm telling you. Well, he passed Hall of Fame running back Earl Campbell for second on the franchise career rushing list, right behind Eddie George. Next up for the Titans, a must-win. Every divisional game is a must-win. The first one will be in Indianapolis. Market Numbers Report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Right now, Dow futures down 46, S&P down 3, NASDAQ up 16. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Good morning. It is 7:08. I'm Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. He's taken a couple of days off. I think he's back on Thursday. Did I hear that right? I think he's back on Thursday.
Yep, he'll be here bright and early.
And then Johnny B is under the weather, and so he's not here today. We've got young Mason. I'm sorry. It just dawned on me. Maybe it's unconscious bias, as they say in corporate speak, but I called you young Mason. I would hate it if you said, well, old Pamela is also on the air. You know what I mean?
I would never say that, and I hope you know that.
So you're just Mason. Young or old, does not matter. Mason is in the house, producer Mason. And then we have old Ken Weaver in there in the newsroom. I'm joking.
Legendary Ken Weaver.
Legendary Ken Weaver in the newsroom, holding down the fort there, making sure that we are up to date on all the news that's going on in the world. And there is a lot happening in the world. There is a move now over in California, right? Because California, longtime California Senator Dianne Feinstein has passed away. I was in D.C. actually when the news broke, and all the flags went to half-mast as soon as that announcement was made. And I think a lot of us saw it coming. I mean, she was not well. She was really unable to hold some of her thoughts together. Was in a wheelchair, but she served until the day that she died. For that reason, I admire her. For that reason. Now, I didn't like her politics. I didn't agree with her politics, but I certainly love the fact that she was a strong female who became what she did in Congress long before people were giving women an opportunity. So I will say that. I know people are probably screaming at the radio, but I firmly believe what I just said. And of course, my heart goes out to her family who's in mourning right now. Now, she didn't leave broke, I can tell you. That woman, I think, was the richest senator. She was married to a billionaire, but she had her own money as well. And so that is where my little red flags and my spidey senses go up. And I wonder, did she use any of her influence in Congress to pad her little pocketbook? Don't know. There's been some accusations. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom will have to appoint someone to take the seat until they have an election. I believe that is how it works. And so he has appointed LaFonza Butler to fill the seat, elevating the head of a, quote, fundraising juggernaut that works to help elect Democratic women who support abortion rights and other things. In fact, she led the campaign, and let me point out the failed presidential campaign of one Kamala Harris. So you got yourself a winner right there, Gavin Newsom. He made a vow, I believe, that when and if that seat became available, that he would appoint a black woman. Now, one of the things that the mainstream media, they've been pointing out is that LaFonza is part of the LGBTQ community. And so it is, I believe, the first openly lesbian lawmaker in the Senate. They have been pointing that out all morning. I will point out, who cares? Who cares about that? Just like I pointed out how young Mason is, by saying young Mason, that's probably, who cares? Right? That's a little bit of a bias that I have somehow gotten into the habit of, and now we're going to have to say openly gay all the time when we mention LaFonza Butler? Good grief. Who cares? Do you preface me by saying heterosexual Pamela Furr filling in on Super Talk 99.7? No, you don't. It doesn't matter. All right. So regardless of all of that, there's something very interesting to me. And I'm going to give a shout out to Robbie Starbuck for posting this. If you don't follow Robbie on socials, you really should. He has lots of inside information. He's got friends that give him info, and he does his own research from time to time as well. Everybody knows the issues that I had with Robbie in the past, and let me point out that's in the past. It was only anyway, it doesn't matter. He posted at 1 o'clock this morning an FEC filing that LaFonza made just 31 days ago. It lists her residence as Maryland. Can you have someone who lives in Maryland as a U.S. Senator in California? She doesn't even live in California. How can she represent the state of California in Congress when she doesn't even live there? Or at least that's not her main residence. That's an issue. Now, I tried to look up the rules. Now, the rules to run for U.S. Senate in the state of California you have to be a resident of the state of California. Now, there's all of this complicated stuff when it comes to elections. We'll get into that, but first, I need to check in from the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much, Jack Womack. It looks like we're going to have a lot of sun today. Highs in the upper 80s, may even get to that 90-degree mark. The lows in the 60s. The sun has come up, but the temperature's gone down just a little bit here in Nashville. It's now 59 degrees. There might be a little bit of fog, too, as you travel, just depending on what part of Middle Tennessee you're driving from. But it is 7:16 on this fine Monday morning. Now, let's get back to this issue of California Governor Gavin Newsom appointing Emily List's president, LaFonza Butler. She is an activist. She works on campaigns. She works to get more Democratic women elected. Those women who believe in abortion, who believe in high taxes, who believe in open borders. Can I continue? I mean, I can go down the list of things if you want. And it is interesting to me that he appoints somebody who lists in her FEC filings, according to Robbie Starbuck, and he posted proof, by the way, and I believe all that stuff is public information, that she's a resident of Maryland, the state of Maryland. So how on earth, again, do you actually live in Maryland but expect to represent the state of California, at least temporarily? Now, here's where it gets dicey for me, at least, in looking up this information. So is she just appointed until a special election and or the general election? Because you've got a primary coming up in California and you have a general election coming up in California. I don't recall if Dianne Feinstein was up for re-election this go around. Remember, it's a 6-year term. So I don't know how he does this and gets away with it if it is indeed true. It seems like shenanigans to me. And are you telling me there are no other qualified black women in the state of California that you can't appoint to the Senate seat there to fill Dianne Feinstein's seat? I know some people were tossing out Meghan Markle over the weekend. Some people were tossing out Oprah Winfrey. I never believed for a second that any of those two would remotely be interested in being in the U.S. Senate. But, you know, that those rumors were out there and that was tossed out there. I don't know much else really about this woman who may end up in the Senate, except for what Politico is telling us. The formal announcement is expected to come today. An advisor to the governor, Anthony York, told Politico that he's making his appointment without putting limitations on preconditions on his pick running for the seat in 2024. So that means Butler could decide to join the sprawling and competitive field of Democratic contenders seeking to succeed Feinstein, with special elections now layered on top of the March primary and November runoff. Butler is expected to be sworn into the U.S. Senate on Wednesday by Vice President Kamala Harris. And how interesting is this? It's full circle. She was in charge, this LaFonza, she was in charge of Kamala Harris's failed presidential election. So Kamala Harris couldn't win even the nomination to run for president of the United States. In fact, she came in pretty doggone dead last. So Joe Biden tapped her to be his VP. That's how she got into this powerful, I'm using air quotes, powerful position as vice president. The same goes for LaFonza. She's going to be in the position in the Senate, not by her own merit, but because a governor of California wants to show some diversity by appointing a lesbian black female. Not on merit, but indeed on the color of her skin, and at this point, her sexuality, because it's the in thing to do these days. 7:20. I'm Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing education and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.
Tens of thousands of other workers in America are threatening to walk out on the job. These stories, or rather, this story and more at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You're not threatening to walk out, are you?
No, well, after 9 o'clock, yes. But I do that every day.
Yeah, that is true.
And then I get shut down.
You shut down in your prime. Shot down in your prime, as they say. All right, good deal. Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. By the way, earlier I had asked the question, when does that sales tax holiday on groceries end? It ends October 31st. So you still have a month to take advantage of that. But like I was saying, I mean, we have a gas prices are going up. Other things are going up. Even with that grocery tax holiday, the things that are going up are counteracting the savings that we would get on the grocery side. So it's just this vicious cycle that seems to have no end unless we get in a new president in 2024, for crying out loud. And I cannot wait until that day. Speaking of presidents, former President Donald Trump is in New York City today ahead of his $250 million civil fraud case. He says, I will be in court this morning. I will fight for my name and reputation. He has a right to do that, just like all of us do. And so we'll keep our eyes there on that courtroom there in New York City and let you know exactly what happens there. Our eyes are on it, just like football fans. Their eyes were on a football game yesterday and whatever Taylor Swift was going to do. I mean, it's going to be that kind of coverage. Okay, I'm joking. It's 7:30. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
7:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes, and another major industry in the United States bracing for a walkout by workers. Here's Rhiannon Alley on this one, which impacts healthcare.
75,000 Kaiser Permanente employees in 5 states threatening to walk off the job this Wednesday. Healthcare workers in California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. A coalition of unions representing them said it remains far apart with the company on key issues. The workers are seeking pay raises, better pensions, and protections against outsourcing.
As for the current United Auto Workers strike, 25,000 union members walking picket lines after it expanded on Friday to more GM and Ford plants. A government shutdown averted for now. The weekend spending agreement that President Biden signed into law lasts 45 days. And federal student loan payments set to resume after being put on hold for more than 3 years during the pandemic. 28 million borrowers will now have to start paying off their student debt this month. The average payment totaling between $200 and $300. Right now in Nashville, still no arrests, but police checking surveillance video, talking to witnesses after 3 people were shot outside the Illusion Club on Murfreesboro Pike. None of the injuries are life-threatening. And look where the Powerball jackpot is again. Here's Dave Packer.
No grand prize winner in Saturday night's Powerball lottery, so up the jackpot goes with the top prize in tonight's drawing, $1.04 billion, Powerball's 4th largest ever. These folks buying tickets in New York City and already have the money spent.
Vacations, pay all my debts.
I would share the money with the poor people, with the people that need. I will make it like a big house.
So give away like 90% of whatever the lump sum is, and I'll stay with 10%. That should be more than enough.
First, you have to beat the odds. One in more than 292 million.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
It is 7:38. Good morning. I'm Pamela Furr, filling in for Dan Mandis, who has a couple of days off. We've got Mason in the control room pushing the buttons in for Johnny B, who has the day off. And then we have Ken Weaver over there in the newsroom holding down the fort there with the headlines and all the things that are happening around the world. That is Nashville's Morning News. Glad you're here. Did you know? I just saw this headline and it blows my mind that Border Patrol agents actually processed more than 200,000 people at the southern border. 200,000 illegals at the southern border. Now, they're calling them migrants, and some of them may be here legally. I mean, if you're processed, then you are here legally, at least for a temporary, well, let me say, what's supposed to be a temporary amount of time. But there is a story out there that's making the rounds. I got to find this. Hang on a second. There's a story that will blow your mind. 3 young girls, including an 11-year-old, were kidnapped, tortured, and raped by an illegal immigrant, actually an illegal immigrant gang in northern Minnesota recently. Did you hear what I said? Minnesota, not Arizona, not Texas, not New Mexico, there at the border, the southern border. No, Minnesota. It's a town that I cannot pronounce. It's located in a rural area of northern Minnesota, near the source, actually, of the Mississippi River. A guy by the name of Oscar Luna, 22 years old, was arrested at the scene. Several men were identified at the scene and transported by U.S. Border Patrol to be processed as illegal aliens. Police arrested a man after an 11-year-old girl told authorities. See, now this makes me even want to cry. Told authorities that she and 2 other girls were tied up and raped by several men at a home in this small town in Minnesota. On September 23rd, the emergency department there in that small town, at that hospital there, called police on an assault complaint. According to court documents, the 11-year-old said she was with a woman who forced her to drink alcohol. A woman who forced her to drink alcohol. She said a bag was placed over her head. She was taken to a home where she was stripped, tied up between 2 other girls, and raped. The girl said another girl was in a closet while the 3rd girl was bloody and unconscious. This is what's happening in our country. I'm not talking about a third world country. I'm talking about in the United States of America by illegals. 22-year-old Oscar Luna, charged with first-degree criminal sexual conduct. He was also arrested on a warrant from another county. Police say several other people were identified at the scene, 11 of whom were transported by U.S. Border Patrol to be processed as illegal immigrants. During separate interviews, the girl told investigators that she had been with someone named Verna Fairbanks, who she called Auntie. At some point, Fairbanks told the girl to get into a car. She said someone then put a bag over her head and brought her to a house with 4 men she described as Mexican, where she was stripped and tied up between 2 other girls who said the same things happened to them. The girl said that while she was at the house, Fairbanks put a rope around her neck and forced her to drink alcohol. Can you imagine, Sorry. I know that there are parents driving to school this morning. I know this is an adult conversation. I understand that. But these conversations have to be had. Because if this is happening in this small town in Minnesota, what else is happening in your backyard, in my backyard? When we see all of these photos and hear all these stories from New York City and other cities that are complaining about all the illegals or migrants that are coming to their area, you think for 1 second that something like this may not, you think it's not happening? Of course it is. Not everyone who comes across the border is a bad hombre, is a bad actor, is a cold-blooded, cold-hearted rapist. There are those that are, I heard a horrible story. I was in D.C. last week, and I was around an organization called Libre. It's a subsidiary, if you will, I guess you would call it that, of Americans for Prosperity, the new company that I work for. They were telling a story of a mother who was pregnant, whose husband was killed by the cartel, and they were after her. And so she paid the money to a coyote to get her across the border so she could get to safety. And even during that process, 7 months pregnant now, she was raped by 2 people at the border before she even got into the United States. She was just looking for safety. So there are those stories that are out there as well. People who need true asylum. So I want to make sure that the humanness and the human face is on this issue. Because there are those. But how do we differentiate between who is good and who is bad? Not all women are good. I just told you a story of one of these women, an adult woman who was obviously participating in what happened to these 3 young girls there in Minnesota by getting them drunk. Now, is she being forced to do that? I mean, who knows? But we now have 3 young girls permanently damaged because of these illegals in that backyard. There's something wrong here, folks. And our president is oblivious to it. It's 7:46. I'm a little behind. Let's check in at the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much, Jack Womack. It looks like we're going to have a lot of sunshine today. Highs in the upper 80s, maybe even hitting 90 degrees, lows in the low 60s. Right now, the sun is shining, everything looking good, 62 degrees outside as we explore this story of Joe Biden's America. Joe Biden's America, where 3 young girls, including an 11-year-old, There are young girls in my life I've had the blessed moments with as their nanny. When I first moved to town years ago, I made my side hustle was babysitting the young girls of some dear friends of mine. And I did that for a lot of years and loved those girls, still do to this day. Now, they're grown women now with their own children, but to this day, love them as if they were my own children. I'm thinking of another girl who is the daughter of a guy I used to date, young girl. She's now, I think she's in that 11 range, 10-year-old range, something like that, maybe even 9. These are the faces that I put to these stories. For me, when I read these stories, that's who I think of. That's who I think of. And how are we going to be able to tell who's legal, who's illegal here? And not only that, who's bad, who's good coming over our border? And these folks are just, with their papers in their hands, being carted off to different cities all across this country. At this point, every state is a border state. I just mentioned Minnesota, for crying out loud. 3 young girls kidnapped, tortured, and raped by an illegal alien, an illegal immigrant gang. Now, is this making headlines on CNN? No. It's not even making headlines on Fox News, for crying out loud. Where's the story? KNOX Radio has it. The Gateway Pundit has it. Local media has it. The young girl was rating her pain as 8 out of 10 2 days after the assault. Said she was able to escape when another girl untied her. She said a man named Panda grabbed the girl who helped the 11-year-old escape and threw her down the stairs. The girl was able to give investigators a description of, quote, Panda, and said he was one of the men who raped her. Officers were able to determine that this piece of crap, Oscar Luna, 22 years old, had come from Mission, Texas. He fit the description of Panda, and they took him into custody. An illegal POS. We'll leave it at that. He's charged with first-degree criminal sexual conduct. And others who are part of that gang, if you will, are also in custody and being processed and being deported. Here's my question. How soon before they come back across the border? This is evil. Evil in our backyard. 7:51. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Dan Mandis on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Government shutdown averted for now, but not the drama. Time to pay up student loan borrowers. And Derrick Henry surpasses the great Earl Campbell in Titans franchise rushing yards. And he fooled everyone, including Mike Keith and Coach Mack.
Ooh.
You got to hear it coming up at 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You don't fool old Mike Keith and Coach Mack very often.
No, sir.
So
no, ma'am. I'm not too used to saying no, sir.
I'm not offended. It's okay. Thank you, Ken. All right, coming up, we're going to hear that, of course. And then coming up after the news and whatnot, we are going to check in with Congressman Andy Ogles. We spoke to him earlier in the show. If you missed it, we'll play it so he can give you his take on all the shenanigans going on in Congress and what happened over the weekend when a continuing resolution was indeed passed, at least for the next 45 days. So we'll talk about that coming up. Stick around. And then, of course, the gang of four amigos at 8:35 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Eight o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Congress has until mid-November now to pass a budget or at least another stopgap funding bill to avoid a potential federal government shutdown. Jonathan Karl says House Speaker Kevin McCarthy now facing a threat to his leadership for working with Democrats on Saturday's measure that does not include any more aid for Ukraine.
McCarthy was able to pull off keeping the government open essentially by defying many members of his own party. He put a bill out that in the end 90 Republicans voted against that required a 2/3 majority because he put it out without any notice, any warning. Almost all of the Democrats in the House, all except for one, voted for it. It passed and it kept the government open for another 45 days. But this is something that McCarthy may pay a price for.
Fellow Republican and frequent critic Matt Gaetz says he'll seek to oust McCarthy for not reining in that spending. 28 million American borrowers rebalancing their budgets as the 3-year pandemic pause on federal student loan payments expires. The average federal student loan borrower owes more than $37,000 in debt, payments averaging between $200 and $300 a month. Right now in Middle Tennessee, Channel 4's Joylyn Bukovac covering a criminal case in Rutherford County.
And this morning, Jason Lancaster is being held on a $1 million bond, and we're just hours away from him walking through these doors alongside sheriff's deputies for the court hearing this morning. And he's facing several charges right now, including 2 counts of rape, 3 counts of sexual battery, stalking, and bribery of a witness.
Now, all of this involves a teenaged girl, allegedly. Police said Lancaster's the owner of Pinnacle Stables in Christiana, where several horses in need of medical and nutritional attention were found on the property. Police say 20 had to be removed from those stables. And right now in Nashville, still no arrests, but police are checking surveillance video, talking to witnesses after 3 people were shot outside the Illusion Club on Murfreesboro Pike. The victims ended up at a Speedway gas station a mile up the road where Roger Dale tells Channel 4 he was going for a cup of coffee.
I just hope they're all right. You know, I don't want nobody to die, or be crippled just because of some stupid thing.
Well, none of the injuries are life-threatening. Turning to sports, not only is Derrick Henry number 2 ahead of the great Earl Campbell on the Titans franchise all-time rushing leader list, but he tricked everyone with a fourth career touchdown pass. That he's fooling me still. It's a day later in the 27-3 win over the Bengals.
Rolling, throwing, Tannehill, touchdown, Titans! Henry, I should say, is the man who rolls and throws. All that movement just freaked me out.
Titans Radio's Mike Keith with the call. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Right now, checking futures ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 63. S&P down 5. NASDAQ up 6. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Good morning. It is 8:06. I'm Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis, who's off for the next couple of days. Glad to be with you today on Nashville's Morning News. Coming up, we'll talk to Congressman Andy Ogles about what happened over the weekend with this continuing resolution and so forth. Meanwhile, has Ken Weaver come back into the newsroom? He has not. All right, when he comes back, I want to hear that out. If you were listening in the newscast just a few minutes ago, he played some really cool Mike Keith audio from Titans Radio that was fabulous. And that game, by the way, on Sunday, if you saw it, holy smokes, that's what I'm talking about. That's the Titans team that I have been wanting to see for a very, very long time, at least this season for sure. So that was a great game, and it was great to see that the Titans showed up. That was very nice. One more thing, the young man from the Tennessee Vols who was injured, I don't know if you saw that, but oh my goodness, that poor kid, he broke his foot. And I mean, I think it was separated from his body. I don't know if you've seen the video, but I will certainly. His name is Brew McCoy. I would certainly pray for him and his family. That's a season-ending injury, and the video is just. If you have a weak stomach, don't watch it because it was obvious on the field that his foot was not attached to his rest of his body. It was awful. Now, I know Ken Weaver has returned to the newsroom. Is he listening, I guess, is the first question. Are you there, my friend? He is not. All right, I saw him just a second ago. Ask him to put his headphones on. I want to hear that audio again from Mike Keith if he can. Nope. Not happening. All right. Well, never mind then. We'll just move on. It looks like there's going to be a continuing resolution. We can spend money for the next 45 days, and then we'll be back at the whole government's going to shut down, government's going to shut down, government's going to shut down. I don't know about you, but I am completely sick and tired of it. And I decided to pick up the phone and call Congressman Andy Ogles yesterday and ask him to be with us earlier this morning, which he was. He's now on a plane back to D.C. To get his take on all the shenanigans that happened over the weekend. You had one congressman that pulled the fire alarm. He says he did it by accident. I ain't buying the story. It ended up delaying the vote for a little bit. I mean, that's childish antics. You've got another congressman who's threatening to motion to vacate Kevin McCarthy from his speakership. So there's a lot going on in Washington, D.C. today. But we spoke to Congressman Andy Ogles earlier. Well, if my computer will work, we spoke earlier. Here's what he had to say.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm just trying to figure out what is happening in Congress. It's a little bit of crazy.
It is a little bit of crazy. But that's okay. I mean, that's what our founding fathers expected is we're supposed to argue and debate. We're supposed to come up with the best outcome for the American people. And so if we all just go in there and kiss a ring, that's not what the founding fathers intended.
Yeah,
so,
that is very true. Very true. And here's the thing. I have to wonder if the founding fathers intended on fire alarms getting pulled right in the middle of all of that.
Okay, I'm just going to be candid. You have to be a special kind of stupid to pull a fire alarm and not realize you're pulling a fire alarm. I mean, come on. I mean, it says fire alarm on it.
Big, bright letters, yes.
I mean, so again, I don't mean to be mean, but that's a lame excuse that he put forward. And quite frankly, I think if the average person did that in a movie theater or at a school, they'd be charged with some sort of crime. But in his case, he'll get off scot-free.
Probably so. Probably that is the case. I think McCarthy has said he's going to launch some sort of ethics investigation, and Capitol Police, of course, are investigating as well. But with these guys, it does look like nothing ever happens to them. There are some, including former President Donald Trump, who think he should be prosecuted just like the January 6th so-called rioters were prosecuted as well.
Well, so there's an ethics committee. It's evenly distributed between Democrats and Republicans. So you have to have something fairly egregious for a Democrat to rank on their party or vice versa. So it's 3-3. And so it's really, so the ethics committee is highly unlikely to do anything because it's designed to be gridlocked. And then Capitol Police, I don't want to be too harsh on the Capitol Police, but I don't expect them to do much of anything either. So with that being said, if I had to predict, he'll get off scot-free. Maybe a censure vote in the House of Representatives. That's probably the worst that'll happen to him. But anyway, we've got the people's business to do. Childish antics aren't productive. We can disagree, but when you're pulling fire alarms, that's, again, special kind of stupid if you don't know if that's fire alarm.
All right, so here's my next question. For those who missed it over the weekend, what exactly happened? So we're okay for, and I'm using the air quotes, okay, for 45 days?
Yeah, so the House of Representatives passed a 45-day stopgap measure, sent it over to the Senate. The Senate took it up and approved it. So it's the typical pattern that you've seen year over year where, you the Congress, House, and Senate kick the can down the road. So they'll do a 45-day CR, continuing resolution. You'll probably see a 30-day resolution. And as you get into the holidays, whether it's right up against Thanksgiving or right up against Christmas, the Senate will send us some sort of ginormous spending bill, and then they'll leave, and then they'll just leave it to us to kind of cram it down our throats. This was kind of the inevitable outcome. We don't control the Senate. That's why the 24 elections are so important. But the Republicans on the Senate side are complicit in these actions, and so let's not forget that. But
sure.
We're holding the line, and so probably the biggest thing that your listeners are wanting to know is what happens next.
Right.
You hear Gaetz on CNN talking about a motion to vacate. Is that the next play? We've passed, so there's supposed to be 12 appropriations bills passed by Congress. That's law. Year over year, Congress breaks its own law, and so what we're trying to force is let's get back to regular order, meaning we follow the law, and pass 12 appropriations bills. So we've passed 4. We have 8 to go, and so we're supposed to be in district this week, and next week we're going to be in Washington, D.C., and then those of us on the conservative side of this equation are pushing, trying to get the other 8 bills passed. So again, we're retraining Congress on this is how you're supposed to operate. And the last time that all 12 bills were passed in accordance to the law was 1997.
Wow. Well,
so that's 26 years ago.
That's 26 years ago, and that's Republicans also who are responsible for that. Wow. All right, now let me ask you this. There's some accusations that Kevin McCarthy was not honest and it is not keeping his word. Is that true?
Well, I guess that probably depends on your perspective. There was always going to be a separate Ukraine vote. Perhaps the details weren't released in specificity, but you kind of have to not be paying attention to realize that was coming. It's kind of like you throw a baseball up in the air. It's coming back down. And so when that funding was set aside, it was going to boomerang back to us. And so that really, for me, the motion to vacate is premature, primarily because it's one thing to change coaches in the middle of the season. It's another thing to try to do it in the middle of the game. We have 8 appropriations bills to pass. We only have 45 days to do it. It's important that we, put our nose to the grindstone. And some of these bills are going to be a challenge. Like the ag bill that failed last week, that's going to take a lot of work. Right. And a lot of meetings. It could take us 2 weeks, which is sad to say that, but the reality is it could take us 2 weeks just to pass that one piece of legislation.
Wow. 8:15. I am Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis. Time now to check in with the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. It is, again, 8:16 this morning. Abundant sunshine today. Highs in the upper 80s, maybe even hitting 90 degrees. Lows in the 60s. Right now it is 65 degrees, and it is sunny. Now, right now, by the way, that was Andy Ogles, Congressman Andy Ogles. You can find that entire interview on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page, YouTube TV page, all of that. I interviewed him at 6:10 this morning, replaying some of that just a moment ago. But the bottom line is he says they will continue to work this week to get all of these appropriation bills passed so that we don't go through all of this again. Now, whether or not he agrees with, and from what I was taking from that interview, I don't know that Andy Ogles is on board with the motion to vacate Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. I don't know that he is. So I guess it just depends on what happens in the next day or two. Matt Gaetz says he's going to do this probably sometime tomorrow. So we'll just kind of wait and see. It's all a bunch of shenanigans, I tell you. Shenanigans. Not only that, you have this squad. He's a squad member. He is a Democrat congressman. Jamal Bowman, heard about it in that interview just a moment ago. If you didn't know, he pulled a fire alarm over the weekend during the time that the Democrats were trying to delay a vote on this continuing resolution. And he says, "Oh, y'all, I'm so sorry. That was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. I thought it was a handle to open up a door," or something to that effect. And ain't nobody buying it. They believe he was trying to delay the vote. He was trying to delay a procedure that was happening in the House of Representatives, which, by the way, I think I'm right on this. Part of the argument from the Democrats on January the 6th is that President Trump and others were trying to interrupt a procedure that was happening in the Senate and in the House, later on in the House. Am I right about that? I think I'm right about that. That was part of their argument of why we should charge Donald Trump with treason. And the reason why a lot of those protesters were prosecuted for what happened on January the 6th. They're using the whole argument of they tried to prevent a procedure, a government procedure that was supposed to happen. Well, that's what this guy did. So you tell me what the difference is. I know there are those that are going to argue, well, the difference is the violence. Is it? It caused chaos at the Capitol. If anybody else would do this at any other kind of building and pull a fire alarm, they'd be arrested. Now, it'd be a misdemeanor, but they'd be arrested for causing chaos. Would they not? Bowman put out a statement claiming that while in a rush to make it on time to vote for a stopgap spending bill that would keep the government open, he, quote, activated the fire alarm mistakenly, thinking it would open the door. I haven't seen the video, but I certainly see the photo. And I don't know about you, but I've seen the photos also of what that fire alarm looks like. And in every building, from here to Kingdom Come, when there's a fire alarm, it's usually bright red. Now, I know maybe he's colorblind. Okay, I'll give him that benefit of the doubt. But it says clearly, fire alarm. And then usually it even has, in smaller letters, pull this lever. Pull here. It's not difficult, and it's not confusing. There's also a big barrier that's set up in front of the door that says emergency exit only in bright red with white letters. And there are two huge signs on the doors that say push until alarm sounds, door will unlock in 30 seconds for emergencies only. So I think that this congressman, Mr. Jamal Bowman, is full of bovine eschatology. He knows exactly what pulling a fire alarm means. He did it while the Dems were trying to stall for time for the Senate, and the Dem whip had just called a motion to adjourn. Dimwit, get it? Now, it's Dem whip, but boy, that sure sounded like dimwit to me. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene, by the way, posting on socials that particular comment. I ain't buying it. Stop it with the baloney, and let's get on with the work that the American people elected you to do. It is 8:21. I'm Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis. This is Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WGN.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the biggest decisions people have to make in retirement is how to take Social Security. You'll get all kinds of workshops about that, and you'll see all kinds of things about that particular topic. Because Social Security, for some people, it might be a third or even more of their income in retirement. So you want to get this decision right. Well, how do you make the decision? Well, one of the things we look at, there are programs we use. This is one of the simpler programs that we use right here. And I want to just show you how it works and how it actually unravels some of the misconceptions we have about Social Security. So we have two people here, they're age 60, and they're looking at filing for Social Security. One person has a retirement benefit of $2,500. That is their main benefit from Social Security at their full retirement age. The other one has a $500 benefit. And what we can do here, which is kind of cool, is look at this and say, okay, well, what if we have this person has that life expectancy and that person has that life expectancy there? And then what we do is we assume a certain cost of living increase in Social Security. What would be the optimal for taking the benefit where they get the most benefit or the most bang from their buck? And where we see the star, that shows that we would have the best benefit. Now, this is one person filing at age 67, the other person at age 70. Well, a lot of people think, well, I retire, I have to take Social Security at the same time that I retire, and that's not necessarily the case. As you can see here, one may take it at one age and one may take it at another, even though they're the same age right now. Now, the other thing we can do is say, well, what if I took it early? What if I took it at this particular age right here, where one person's 65 and the other one's 65? You can actually see how much it could cost in benefits. When we do this, we can see how much it might cost us and how much it might affect us negatively to do that. Now, the other thing we can do is we can play around the life expectancies, and we say, well, if this person lives to that age, now the cost is $187,000 in this particular example, taking it at that age right there. So you can see, based on your own life expectancy, and typically people will say, well, what did my parents live to, and come up with that type of data. So this is just part of the financial planning process that we use at Paul Winkler Inc. If you want to know more about what we do, you can get a free 15-minute phone call at our website, paulwinkler.com. We do financial planning, full financial planning. We do investing, education, and investing. We actually help people through those decisions, helping them set up their 401ks and those types of decisions, as well as risk management. But we don't get paid on commission. That's what makes us so different from other firms out there that do what we do. So if you want to find out more, go to paulwinkler.com.
Well, the federal government shutdown averted, but now we have a speaker showdown. Federal student loans coming due again. Demonstrators already gathering outside a New York City courtroom where former President Donald Trump will be today. These stories and more at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. In fact, they're doing the OJ treatment on Donald Trump right now on CNN. They are following his motorcade. He has left to arrive at the courthouse awaiting his civil trial.
High drama.
It is high drama, I tell ya. It looks like he's now gotten off the exit that will lead him to the courtroom. So anyway, all eyes are on that motorcade. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 SUVs. I'm counting, and one police car in front of him and a drone or something.
Maybe a 2010 Corolla.
That's following him. Is that because that's what the police officers drive?
That's what I drive.
Oh, that's what you drive. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Well, anyway, thank you, Ken Weaver, and we'll keep you posted on this. The gang of four amigos coming up. Find out what happened to Sister Pamella this morning when she decided to hit a McDonald's at 3 a.m. just to get coffee. We'll talk about that and other things on the way on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Having presided over that bipartisan vote to keep the government funded through mid-November, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy now faces a challenge to his leadership from his right flank. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz says he'll move to oust McCarthy. Federal student loan payments set to resume after being put on hold for more than 3 years during the pandemic. 28 million borrowers impacted with an average payment totaling between $200 and $300. And right now in New York City, demonstrators have already gathered outside the courthouse where former President Trump is making his way for the opening day of his civil fraud trial. Here's Aaron Katersky.
On the eve of a civil fraud trial that has already jeopardized his control of the real estate empire that made him a household name, Trump telling a campaign rally in Iowa.
They go after their opponents with the law enforcement now. They've weaponized our law enforcement.
The judge has already decided the core of the case, finding conclusive evidence Trump, his eldest sons, and the Trump Organization committed widespread fraud by lying about the value of his assets, inflating Trump's net worth by as much as $2.2 billion.
Market Numbers Report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Despite weekend work on Capitol Hill to avoid a government shutdown, stocks were poised to fall at the opening bell. Dow futures were down 77 points. The S&P was set to start the week down 0.2%. NASDAQ futures were flat. Stocks finished out September the way they spent most of the month, that is, down. The Dow on Friday lost 158 points and finished the week at 33,507. The S&P slipped 0.25%. The NASDAQ did manage to pull out a 0.14% gain. Along with a short-term federal spending plan, another deal was struck over the weekend to avert a strike at Mack Trucks. The United Auto Workers and the truck maker have reached a tentative agreement. The UAW is into the third week of its strike against Stellantis, Ford, and GM. The last few initial public offerings have met with mixed reviews. Now Birkenstock, the German footwear company, plans to give an IPO a go. The company is seeking a valuation of just over $9 billion.
All right, let's check stocks. Now that we're 3 minutes into the brand new trading week, the Dow is down 52, S&P down 4, NASDAQ up 13. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 8:39. I am Pamela Furr in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. It's time for the Gang of Four Amigos. Now, I have to number you, right? So we've got Chris Hand in the studio. You'll be amigo number one.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome to the studio. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. And then we have Mason in the studio. I also almost called him Young Mason again, but Mason in for Johnny B. You're amigo number two.
I appreciate it, and I will never not accept the young part.
The young part. And then over there in the newsroom is amigo number three, Brother Ken Weaver.
Young and a fast runner.
Nice. Do you still do the whole soft clothes thing? Just checking in.
Every chance I get.
Excellent.
I'm in them by 12:15 every day.
Every single dang day. All right. And then Pamela over here. I'm amigo number four. Glad to be with you. Dan is off this week. No, just till he'll be back on Thursday.
Yep, back Thursday morning.
So, and Johnny B is off. So I get the opportunity to fill in today. I'm heading back to D.C. tomorrow, but I get to be in today. So I'm really happy about that. However, I had a little incident this morning, guys, and I just want your opinion on how stupid Sister Pamela is, although please don't say it out loud. No, I'm teasing. So at 3 o'clock this morning, I'm coming in and I'm thinking, ooh, I need some coffee, and to be Awaken 180 compliant, I need some eggs, because I didn't make any breakfast this morning. It's 2 o'clock in the morning when I wake up and hit the shower to come in here today, right? So I decide to hit the McDonald's over here off of Broadway, which is my first mistake. So I go to the Broadway McDonald's. They're open 24 hours. And as I'm driving into, there are two lanes, and one is separated by a bit of a little median, and then you've got two different speakers, menus, electronic menus with the speakers on both of them. So I'm driving in to get into my little lane, and there are a couple of young people standing there at the menu speaker. And I'm going, what in the world is this?
Couple of youths,
couple of young people.
Some youths.
And so, anyway.
Using that police talk. There were some youths.
Some juveniles. And they were probably early 20s. They were dressed nice. I just thought, well, they're probably trying to soak up a burger or two after some alcohol down there on Broadway. So I roll down my window and just to kind of listen to the conversation. And the McDonald's person inside is saying, well, you need to download the app to order your food. And so that this young girl is standing there going, okay, what do I do? And so she starts to download the app. And I'm thinking, if you'll just move over to the left, I can just pull up, order my food, be done. I'll be out by the time you download. So when I roll down the window, I go, hey, if you can move over to the side, that's all I say. Well, she gets...
That's your first mistake right there.
That's my first mistake at 3 o'clock. So she gets belligerent. How dare you, and starts calling me names that I can't repeat on the radio, and then just stands in the center of the drive-through lane in front of my car.
Like she's some kind of climate activist.
Right. How dare she? And so I'm thinking, what do I do? And then these people, they're more young people just come out of the woods. And there they are in front of my car. I can't move at this point.
You're surrounded by campers.
I'm surrounded by climate campers. Then I look in my rearview mirror and there are kids behind my car. And they're all yelling at me. And I'm thinking, I just want a coffee. I don't want all this. So I can't leave. So I said, well, if you'll just move, I'll leave. I'll be about I won't even order. No, you crazy, B word.
Good heavens.
So I'm thinking somebody's going to get shot. And that somebody might be me. So
did you go full Ginger Rambo on him, or what did you do?
Not today. Well, I didn't want to kill a young person. I didn't want to be the one. Well, anyway, I didn't run anybody over. So I called 911. What else are you going to do? You call 911. They're not allowing me to leave. I can't back out. I can't move forward. What do I do? So I call 911. So I'm on the phone with the dispatch. They're screaming at me. So I scream back, just move. I'm leaving. Move so I can leave. I don't know, 5 minutes of this, they finally move out of the way and I drive off. How stupid of that was me to even stop someplace at 3 o'clock in the morning. Have you ever done anything like that or had that experience where people aren't even allowing you to leave? And they're like young people and like they're trying to download an app, you crazy B word. And like, that's how they're talking to me, drunk. They didn't look like thugs. They just looked like 20-somethings who'd been out all night. You know what I mean?
That's
but I'm
insane.
thinking, I'm about to get shot by a bunch of 20-somethings
Over
here.
a coffee and a hash brown.
I just wanted a coffee, man.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. Anyway, anything like that ever happened to you, Chris And?
No, nothing like that's ever happened to me. But did you see the reverse that happened in Houston? There's like a viral video going around where a man was arguing with the Houston Jack in the Box drive-through worker over some curly fries.
No.
So they got into it and they're going back and forth over curly fries. At which point the woman who works at the Jack in the Box pulled out her firearm and opened fire on the man who was upset about the curly fries.
No.
Yeah, happened in Houston, Texas.
She apparently had enough.
Well, I don't know that she could claim self-defense, could she? Because, I mean, was he threatening her? That's crazy. Did you see the viral video of I don't know, Uber Eats driver? I don't know if that's who he was, but he was delivering food and someone was trying to pull a prank on him with a cell phone and was like in his personal space. So the guy actually pulled out a gun and shot that other guy in the stomach.
Oh, gosh.
This is going around viral today. So, I mean, I'm thinking...
So it's the new shoot your Uber Eats driver challenge or something?
It must be.
Yeah.
And
terrible.
I'm thinking maybe that's what's going to happen to me this morning. And then who would fill in? Who would they call?
It'd have been Brother Mason.
It'd have been Mason and Ken doing the morning show, Nashville's Morning News with Mason and Ken.
And here's the thing. I listen, but I don't know that much to keep on 4 hours of conversation. I don't think people would enjoy that.
Well, you guys would have had the top story handled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it would have been pretty.
That would have been the top
host,
story.
Yes.
It would have been
shot in a McDonald's McDonald's drive-through. Sponsored by Awaken 180. That would have been funny. No, I'm teasing. All right. No, but
you learned the lesson going outside your diet.
Right, exactly. And I was just looking for coffee and some scrambled eggs, man. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. I know, Sister Pamela, next time go in the store.
Well, they don't know.
I'm just joking.
They're not open.
Oh,
It's
they're not open
just
for
the
it's just the
drive-thru.
drive-through. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, get out and try to get in the store.
Yeah,
See how that works out.
Yeah, that's not
Actually,
gonna
that reminds me of a video I saw yesterday of some people got in a confrontation at a McDonald's at the register. And the woman had enough behind the counter dealing with the lady trying to order, and she threw the blender at her. She was trying to order a McFlurry, and they were like, "It's not working." She goes, "Yes, it is. I could see it right there." And she goes, "No, it's not," and throws it at her.
Threw it at her.
Threw it at her.
Here's your flurry.
Get that woman $15 an hour stat.
All right, now.
I don't mind paying the $20 an hour now. It's
Full
like, goodness.
confession. Now, this is years ago.
You threw a blender at somebody?
I didn't throw a blender. Years ago, though, at a restaurant in town here that doesn't exist anymore. I was a baby. I was 21, 22 at the Cooker. I can name the restaurant now. I was a server for all of 2 weeks. And what had this man who had ordered was so rude that when I finished with him, he ended up with a glass of fruit tea on his head because I thought, I don't have to deal with this. I don't need you and I don't need this job and you're not going to talk to me this way. And here's your fruit tea. And I poured it on his head. Now, these days I'd be arrested for assault. But back then I walked out. I'm like, I can't do this job. Obviously, I would have been fired. But I did do that. Fruit tea assault.
That's crazy.
All right.
People are asking on the super text line, did the police actually end up showing up to your 911 call?
Yes. So the police, they finally moved out of the way. Well, I guess I left this part of the story out. So as the individuals moved out of the way, a vehicle then pulled from the other side of the drive-thru and blocked my car, and they were all friends, right? So someone had a car, but the rest of them were out ordering outside of that car, and that tells me someone had to pee. That's why they were out of the car. That tells me what that was all about. But so they were truly blocking me from being able to leave. So I didn't have a choice. I had to call the police. So they finally, yes, they did show up as I was leaving, and I called 911 back and said, look, I've left, but, I see your cop pulling in. Thank you very much for getting here as soon as you did. They finally let me out, so all is well with the world. But yes, they did show up. Thank you, Metro Police.
So
all right.
That woke you up better than coffee.
I was wide awake. I was ready. When I walked in the door, I was a livid little redhead, livid ginger, who just wanted some coffee. That's all.
A good
I
name
wanted.
for a band.
And then you go to the break room and there's no cups.
There's no cups. Well, I brought my own.
We have coffee, but no cups.
No cups. That's so weird.
Oh, we got cups sitting around. They're just real dirty.
Nobody's doing the dishes these days.
Strange bugs come up out of them.
Is this as exciting as the normal Gang of Four? If I bored y'all with my story, I just wanted to share that story today. Real quick, though, before we go, obviously we want to know what's coming up on the Chris Hand Show, but I just want to mention, how about them Titans?
Yes, sir.
That was a fantastic game.
About time.
I'm glad they finally showed up. Showed out King Henry doing all he can to break all kinds of records.
Yep.
Loved that. And then prayers go out. What's the young man's name again, Ken?
Oh, yeah, Brew
McCoy?
Brew McCoy.
Yeah, Brew
wide
McCoy
receiver for the Vols, Brew McCoy.
Yeah, I don't know if because we've never talked about this, Chris. I don't know if you're a football fan or not.
Meh.
So he's met on it. The Vols played over the weekend, but there was a horrific injury Brew McCoy sustained. His foot was basically detached from his leg.
Yeah, his ankle.
It was
his
bad.
His foot came out of the socket, and then it broke.
And so, and you, on the video, you see his foot just hanging off to the side. Not the normal side it would
just went,
turn into.
Just went full dangle.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Watching the video, if you have a queasy stomach, it's going to affect you. And, players were grabbing their helmets like, oh, my God, I can't even believe what I'm seeing. So, anyway, our prayers go out to Brew McCoy. What's coming up on the Chris Hand Show at 9 o'clock?
We're going to go over, Biden had 2 speeches over the week. Well, he had an interview with ProPublica. We're going to go over that. We're going to go over his speech about how great everything is. And then we're also going to talk about Matt Gaetz versus Kevin McCarthy.
Yes.
Whose side you on? No matter which way you cut it, somebody's working with Democrats. So where are you at? And also, we got a super texter that said Livid Ginger would have been a great alternative 90s band.
Oh, yeah.
The Livid Ginger Band. I think you're right.
Yep.
Thank you, whoever that super texter is. It's 8:52. This is Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Former President Trump has arrived at the courthouse. This story and more coming up at 9 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you very much, Ken Weaver. Chris Hand, of course, coming in after the news at 9:05. Be listening for that. Just real quick, the Bourbon Bash is on this year. Don't forget about that, November the 11th. If you're interested in tickets, just go to Bourbon Bash Tix, T-I-X, bourbonbashtix.com. They are on sale now. I know a lot of you have attended over the years, and I thank you for that. Proceeds to benefit the Freedom and Whiskey Foundation. That's November the 11th. And then, of course, I will see you. I don't know when I see you, when I get called again. In the meantime, you can find me on the socials. Pamella Furr, Grassroots Engagement Director for Americans for Prosperity here in Middle Tennessee. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.